Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Richard Watson from Sabre Education and welcome back to Lumishine Shine On with Lumishine. Today we're going to focus on Joico's Lumishine for colour correction. So we're going to talk about some hints and tips and some formulations that's going to help you to understand colour correction and feel a bit more confident about it. Because I feel like just the word colour correction can strike fear into the hearts of hairdressers, whether you're experienced or not. That said, if you've got some knowledge and experience and you feel confident with colour correction, to me there's something great about that, because it's really rewarding when you can change someone's colour completely, dramatically, whether it be overnight in that one system on the day, or whether you set up a plan for the client over the next few months or even 6-month period. And that's something that we'll talk about as well, just making sure you've got a plan and you understand that really using Joico products, the most important thing is the health of the hair. So that's something we'll keep in the back of our mind the whole time that we do colour correction. So we're going to break down the colour correction components into simple bite-sized portions. And if you look at the whole colour correction job, there might be lots of bands within the hair. If you can break it down into small pieces, you'll find that it actually becomes quite simple, because all the rules that you probably already know as a hairdresser, they'll all apply to what you're going to do. And we just need to make sure that we put it in a systematic way. So the first thing that we do is we do the consultation. Now, consultation is the key for colour correction. Ideally, with a colour correction, you would find out prior to the service that they're actually wanting a big change. Now, just like with a wedding, it's ideal to have the conversation earlier, prior to actually booking the appointment. So if you can do that with a consultation, that's ideal. What you'd like to do is sit down with the client and do all the analysis, which we're about to talk about in a second, and then you could book in the actual appointment, because after you've done the analysis, you're going to know how long it's going to take, really. But that doesn't always happen in an ideal world, and I think you just need to let the client know that there will be certain systems that are going to happen, and it's not going to be a simple colour where they apply the colour once and they can leave. There might be multiple processes. But let's break it down into 3 simple portions with the consultation. Number 1 is analyse the existing colour. Now, what I tend to do, even now I've been hairdressing a long time, if I've got something that's quite tricky, it's a big colour correction, and I know I need to put my thinking cap on, I'll get a whiteboard marker and I'll start to draw on the mirror. And I'm going to demonstrate what I do there on some whiteboard over here, just to give you an idea that this is something that works from first-year apprentices to very experienced hairdressers, to give you a breakdown of how you're going to do your consultation for a colour correction. So, like I said, the first point is the finding out, analysing the hair for the existing colour. So, we're talking about the existing colour. Now, the idea here is that we draw a triangle which represents taking the hair from the roots and stretching it down and pinching the ends of the hair. So this section here represents the scalp virtually. This is a weft of hair running all the way down to the ends. And by doing this, we can actually put in regrowth, for example. So I would put a line in through here and say my client's hair is a natural level 6. We're just doing this as an example at the moment. Then I would look in and I would see what we've got through the mid-lengths to ends. So let's say, for example, we've got a band in the hair. We've got a mid-length band in through here, which is a level 8 with a gold tone. Moving on to the ends of the hair, we're moving into, let's say we've got a level 9 and it might have a copper tone. Just make sure you can see the difference between the gold and the copper. This is something that I do with a lot of training to try to get people used to the idea of analysing hair and giving it two simple things, a depth and a tone. And once we have a depth and a tone, we have a shade. And what we're always after is that end result shade, but we need to work out what we start with first. So a level 6 natural, that's virgin hair. The mid-band, after we have our regrowth, is an 8-level gold, and on the ends is a 9-level copper. So this is a good example of the sort of colour that will really need correction. We need to work into these areas here. Now, something else that we need to look at is, does that have any white hair? So things to keep an eye on is percentage of white in through here. And if it was white hair, I would put in a marker in here saying it was, let's say, 10% W. And that's a simple way now I can remember. I've got this written on my mirror, so I know what I start with. As we start to then work across into what she wants, then we can formulate how we're going to get there. And that brings us to step 2, determine the desired result. This really is about a conversation with you and your client. The client's wants and their needs, they might want something, but you are ascertaining that they need something else. For example, on our client in through here, she might be giving you the conversation that her desired result I won't write it in here yet, is like a level 10 white blonde, clean white blonde. Now that is a desire and fair enough to her, but you may find that analysing the initial part of this consultation, that these ends here are extremely damaged, and you're working out that you do not want to lighten any of the mid-lengths or the ends. So her desire to have a level 10 ultra blonde really is not going to be in fitting with what you should be doing in the salon. The number one thing is to make sure that you're always going to leave the hair healthier when she leaves the salon than when she arrived. Now, we've got wonderful products at Joico. However, there are some times where you feel as though the hair is in such bad condition that she's better off having multiple treatments before she can have that desired result. On the other hand, that's where the consultation comes in, and you can give her other options. And we might be looking at an option of saying, we are going to, instead of taking you really blonde through the ends and lightening those roots, we're actually going to take you darker all the way through, get it nice and healthy. And that's a little example that I'll do here today. So after a conversation, we've actually said, okay, we're not going to go blonde. Are you open to going darker? And if you are open to going darker, what are we after? And, you know, just for the sake of today's video, the consultation came up with the idea that she wants to look natural all over. And that means that she's a natural level 6. Therefore, she wants to be a 6 all the way from the roots to the ends. This is a simple one. We've got some bands in here, but because we now know that we've got 3 sections of hair that then need to be 1, that is what brings us to part 3 of the consultation process, which is plan your formula. Okay, so this is the part where we put our thinking caps on and we break it down into the bite-sized sections. I'll do this as we go through later because we've got some formulas for going darker, but I know initially that I need to have 3 separate sections of the hair. Section 1, which is the virgin hair, which is level 6, 10% white. Section 2 is the mid-band, which is an 8-level gold. And section 3 is the 9-level copper. So we've got to do some working through here to help us out to take it back to natural. I'll talk about that later. I hope this gives you a bit of an idea about a simple way to break down what could be a complicated colour correction into small sections as you go. And like I said, I still do this. If we've got a photo shoot or a big colour correction job, I literally will write this on the mirror of my client and get a plan, go into the back room and break it down into my 3 colours. There might be even more colours for that matter. So let's now talk about going lighter. Now, if we are to go lighter in a colour correction, we are going to have to analyse the hair and work out exactly how healthy that hair is, how light we need to go, and whether we can do it or not. And then once we actually lift that hair, then we need to look at recolouring it, and that's where we would be toning. But that sort of colour correction really doesn't require pre-pigmenting, like we're going to talk about later in today's session. It's going to require lifting and toning. So if we can bring up the going lighter section of our PowerPoint there, thanks, Dom. Excuse me, I just need to get water. Thank you. Sorry about that, Maria. I just needed some water.
That's okay.
Then, okay. So as you can see on our slide on the screen, we've got options for going lighter, and that's going to be determined by, like I said, the health of the hair, how light we want to go, and how dark the colour is at the start, or what type of artificial or natural pigment we start with. So the first point that we've got on there is colour intensity eraser. Now that's a little bit on its own. I wanted to talk about it separately at the start because colour intensity eraser is the lightning product that you would use for any colour removal of direct pigment. So the colour intensity pigments, this is what you'll use. We do not recommend at all that you use any of our other lighteners that we've got here. This is made specifically for removing colour intensity pigment. If you're interested in knowing the formulas of how to use a colour intensity eraser, please check back on the video that we did earlier in Lumishine Shine On. Sorry, no, it wasn't Lumishine Shine On, it was Joico Colour Intensity class. So that told us all about how to use the remover. So I wanted that to be a bit of a side note because if you're dealing with direct pigment, it works very differently. So now let's move on to the main part of today where we're lifting either natural hair, which is virgin hair, or artificial pigment. So that could be a demi-permanent or a permanent colour. And we've got multiple options to use. So like I said earlier, it depends how much you want to lift. If we're looking at lifting up to 1 level, we just need to remove a little bit of that warmth, lift a little bit of the depth in the hair, just lifting it up 1 level. The perfect solution for colour correction of a very low level, 1 level of lift, is our Base Breaker Cool. The Base Breaker Cool works perfectly in 10 minutes with 20 volume to lift 1 level. It's got cool pigment in there as well, so quite often you can actually use this as a colour correction tool without having to tone afterwards because it will tone on its own. Underutilized product. If you guys haven't used this, please get some. It is absolutely brilliant. 20 volume, 10 minutes, 1 level of lift. Amazing stuff. And then we move into the real colour correction stuff where we're quite dark and we want to lift a lot of that pigment. If it's artificial pigment, then this is where we really need to use a powder lightener or a cream lightener because we need the strength. And I think we might have a question over there, Anne.
Yeah, so we have a question here. When using the colour eraser, is the hair stable to work on afterwards or will you need to alter your formulas?
Good question. Absolutely. the way that the color eraser works in color intensity is that it will remove it in a similar manner to a lightener, as in we're talking about powder lighteners and cream lighteners. It works in a similar way, but it's got different ingredients that don't react with the direct pigments. So yeah, absolutely consider hair that's been lifted with eraser the same as if you lift it with Blonde Life and 10 Volt, for example. I hope that answers the question. And if it ever doesn't answer the question, shoot it through again.
Another question we've got, can you use eraser on other Joico colours?
Colour intensity eraser is made to be used with direct pigments. So we're looking at colour intensity colours in Joico. That is absolutely ideal. You can use it and it won't affect other colour processes. You can use it almost like you would a lightener, but because we have got purpose-built lighteners, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, I really wouldn't bother doing that. You're much better off using that specifically for your colour intensity removal. Okay, so if we move on, and we know we can get lift from one level with our base breaker, but we need to get more lift than that. We go into our real lighteners. I've got them lined up down here in their order of lifting ability. So we start off with our Verilight lightning powder. This gives us the ability to lift up to 8 levels. Verilight is perfect for a lot of your lightning and your color correction work. However, we have a product that has the same amount of lift in it, same power, called Vericapac Cream Lightener. Now the benefit of using this is it's an oil-based product. So if you were doing a color correction that required a root application, I would be using my cream lightener. It's absolutely ideal. It has quadramine complex for rebuilding the hair, plus the oils for protecting the scalp. Now, these are everyday lighteners. Then we move into our Blonde Life series. Now, these are our premium lighteners, and they actually give us the ability to lift 9 levels or more. So it has the ability to lift more than what we've spoken about earlier. However, because of the bond-building arginine in the both of these products in the Blonde Life, it doesn't damage the hair any more than any other products that we make in the lightning ranges. So this is my go-to range because it has the power to lift and it has the gentle and rebuilding properties to keep the hair really healthy. So when we are talking about using our Blonde Life powder lightener, this will give us 9 levels of lift, and then we've got our Blonde Life cream lightener, which has the same ingredients in terms of the bond-building arginine, but it is in a base that gives us protection to the scalp. It also is a creamier consistency, so I know a lot of people like to do balayage work with it. But if we're just talking about pure colour removal as a colour correction, I like just to keep it simple. If I want maximum lift off scalp, I'll use my Blonde Life lightning powder. If I want maximum lift on scalp, I'll use my Blonde Life cream lightener. So that gives us an idea of everywhere we can go from removing colour intensity direct pigments all the way up to lifting up to 9 levels with our Blonde Life, whether it's on scalp or off. And I think we've got another question.
We do. Could you also use the Base Breaker Cool as an alternative to a bleach bath at the basin for blondes with muddy ends after foiling their regrowth?
That's a good question, and I think that must be someone that's maybe done that before, because yeah, it's a really great way to use the Base Breaker Cool. I know a lot of people use it to just clean out old foil work. That something about using it, it slightly tones. I've never used it in ultra blonde hair and had it overtone, so it's safe, but it tends to make your old foils pop. It's fantastic, absolutely brilliant to use on blondes to just give it that extra boost of lift. So yeah, another great way of what I'd consider a really soft, gentle colour correction that takes 10 minutes at the basin. So yeah, good option, great option. Everything that we've talked about here with lightning, I want to preface by saying that we need to prepare the hair first. When we prepare the hair, I want to either use our Defy Damage Pro Series 1 spray, applying this prior to any lightning service, and then you would finish that service right at the very end with your Defy Damage Pro Series 2. This is the bond rebuilding treatment. And whenever you're colouring, whether you're applying colour or you're applying a lightener, we have got the KPAC Professional HKP Porosity Equalizer, absolutely perfect for helping to even out that porosity. However, I do say if you've used your Pro Series 1, there's no need to double up using this. However, if I was to do a colour correction and I was to lift first, I would use Pro Series 1 with my lightning product, and then when I go to do my toning or my colouring darker, that's when I'll be applying my HKP Porosity Equalizer. So all of these concepts are there to keep the hair as healthy as possible, whilst doing a really large job. A colour correction is something that we don't take lightly, so we want to make sure we analyse the hair well and we keep it healthy. I think we've got another question.
We do. Does Blonde Life Cream Lightener leave an oil residue in the hair?
Great question. We've got two cream lightening products. The Blonde Life Cream Lightener doesn't leave oil. The KPAC Colour Cream Lightener does leave an oil residue. So depending on what you need to do, sometimes it's good that it leaves an oil. I've worked in really, really damaged, really, really curly hair, and using the cream lightener, which is, you know, it does leave an oil residue. This was perfect. If I was working in very fine hair, that an oil residue was left on the hair afterwards, I wouldn't use this. I would definitely use my Blonde Life because it won't leave an oil residue. Okay, so we've had a look at our lightning, and we've looked at lightning from low levels up to our high levels. That brings us back to our consultation. Now, if we look through here, we don't have any reason to do any lightning at this stage. However, if I was to draw one of these up to do a lightning, which I won't do right now, just to show you that it's quite simple and it can be done multiple times. So we have our existing, desired, and our formula. So the roots are up here and our ends are down here. Now, what we are finding is we've got a client that has come in for a colour correction and she's got a build-up of colour and she needs to go lighter. So let's say, for example, we've got a natural level 5 and her ends are a level 6 gold. After a consultation, bear with me because it's a mock consultation, we found out that she actually wants to be an 8 level natural colour, no noticeable pigment. So an 8 natural all the way through from roots to tips. So we need to come up with a formula for a colour correction. We've got a band in here, so we need to come up with formula A, and we've got our mid-lengths to ends, which will be formula B. So there's lots of different ways to go about this. First thing I look at is formula B is going to require 2 levels of lift, and then we are going to need to tone that back because it's got gold. As we lift, it will create more warmth. So then we want a natural looking 8 at the end. So what I want to do is I want to lift that to a level 9. It's going to be very warm. And then I want to tone that back with a cool level 8. So I need 3 levels of lift realistically going to colour back. So for 3 levels of lift, I've got options. I could use my Vera Light powder lightener. I could use my Vera KPAC cream lightener. I could use my Blonde Life powder lightener or my Blonde Life cream lightener. Personally, I will use today Blonde Life Powder Lightener. So we'll go Blonde Life Powder Lightener to get 3 levels of lift on artificial pigment. We know it's artificial because we've got a regrowth of virgin hair and then artificial hair. I'm going to use 20 volt. On my roots, I'm not going to do anything yet because what I'm waiting for is those ends to come up. And then once the ends are very, very close to being lifted, I need 4 levels of lift out of my root area. As we know, the roots will lift quicker because of the warmth. And then I will come in and I will apply the same formula at the roots. Now, the reason that I'm doing that is I want continuity of colour right through the ends. Yes, I know there'll be hairdressers out there that say I'm a level 5 and I want to be a level 8. I could quite simply go in with a permanent colour to lift 3 levels on virgin hair. Yes, I could. However, I'm more likely to have a strong band still left in the hair if I have a permanent colour on the roots and a lightening and then toning process on the ends. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to lift it all up until I get to like a 9 gold, and then I'm going to tone that back down. So we've got this formula 1, and that's going to lift us up. Now, as you would know with lightning services, you can never tell exactly what the end result's going to be. Does that client have a little bit more warmth in her hair naturally? Is she going to throw more orange or more yellow? So the only way to determine the end result of your lightning process is to wait until it's done, then reanalyze the hair, which we would come back in and do this system. So if we imagine now we'll work in this section here and say that this is the color that we've got after I've lightened it. And I've brought it up to a 9 level gold, and I've been lucky enough to get a nice even result because of the way that I've applied my lightener on the ends first and then the roots, that I've got a 9 level gold on those ends. So now the desired result remains the same. Now we need to move in and create a new formula for our toning, and that new formula will be, I'll just draw another triangle out here. I hope this is making sense. 9G is what we now have. So this is the new color that she has. We've gotten a light, but the tone's not very nice because she wants to be an 8 level natural. So an 8 level natural, to remove gold, we need to put in violet. We need to go in with an 8. So I've got lots of options, but off the top of my head, I could go in with something like a 8 level violet because gold is a yellow base. So let me have a look at my color chart. Okay, so I would love to use my liquid demis to tone this down, and I'm going to do a combination of 7V and 9V together. That's going to remove all of that strong gold yellow pigment in the hair and bring it back to a nice level 8 natural. So the formula, it's going to be the same from the roots to the tips. So it is actually going to be 9V plus 7V. Now, it is quite simple. I hope that I haven't confused you too much with all of this drawing. I use it, and I know lots of hairdressers that I've worked with use it to create a simplified method. Whether that's coming across on video or not, I'm not sure, but this can mean that you create what is quite complicated into a simple solution. Please feel free to contact us if you need any more information about this kind of concept. So that is a little bit of a rough idea, a bit of a mock consultation on what we will do when we're needing to lift and tone. Now we're going to look at going darker where we need to fill the hair. And I think we've got a question.
We do. Pauline has asked, would you use the Pro Series 2 before or after you do the toning?
Great question, Pauline. Pro Series 2 will get used right at the very end of the service. So whenever you're at the basin, if you're doing any shampooing or any kind of work or removing colour, the last thing that you'll end up doing on that day is the Pro Series 2. So use that at the very end of the service because that will be the bond building treatment that locks in the bonds at the end of the service.
Okay, we got another question. What's your go-to mixing ratio when using Blonde Life powder lightener?
Good question. I used to do a 1-to-2 mix, but now I do a 1-to-1.5 mix. I feel like it's a little thicker, yes, I have a bit more control with it, but it gives me just the perfect lift. So the 1-to-1.5 mix with my Blonde Life.
Great.
Cool. Excellent. All right. So we've talked about lightening. Now let's move into darkening. Now this is where we use words like pre-filling, using a filler. What do we need to know? What do we need to do? Now, when we're talking about Lumishine, we've got two options when filling the hair. First of all, we need to look at how much darker am I going? So if I'm going 2 levels or more, then I need to fill the hair. If I'm only going 1 level, then really you can choose your desired result because 1 level darker isn't going to require that filling process. Now, what we recommend with Lumishine is 2 options. One is using the liquid demis, and the other one is using the dimensional deposit demi-permanent colours. So we've got a slide which will show some formulas of our dimensional deposit demi-permanent colour creams and how to actually pre-colour prior to stage 2, which will be applying your desired result. Okay, so some of those formulas I need to just have a little look at because I don't have them off the top of my head, so thanks, Abby. So if you're looking, can you guys see it on the screen, the going darker with DD creams? Awesome, okay. So if you look there, you've got 2 sections. One is if you're going to a really warm colour, a red colour, and the other one if you're going to kind of everything else. It says a balanced shade, but we're talking about natural, slightly warm tones, whether it's a natural warm beige result or something like that. So we divided it into 2 sections. And using the DD creams, what we do is we look at the first, how dark or how light that hair is initially. We don't look at the desired shade yet because with this system, the DDs, we just need to say, okay, she's starting off at a level 10, for example. She can go to whatever she wants to go to, whether that be a level 6 or a level 4 or a level 8. We need to fill that hair determined by how light she is initially. So if I'm having a look here, like I said, I can't memorize them, but let's say, for example, she is a level 9 and we're tinting back to like a level 6. I would fill that hair, if I'm going for a red level 6, with 8 NRG. And that would be with 5 volt for 20 minutes. But if we use the same client as an example, then she's a level 9 and she's going to, she wants to be a natural level 6. What I would do is I would fill that with 3 parts 9NG and 1 part 8 NRG. Process that for 20 minutes with 5 volume, rinse, and then you dry off and apply the desired result, the desired shade after that. It's quite simple with the DD creams. So, for example, if she was going for a 6 natural, I would do that filling portion first, remove the colour, and then just put a straight 6N in the DD straight over. Then I would get my desired result. These are safety net formulas. If you're really experienced with colour corrections and with Lumishine specifically, you'll find that you can tweak these formulas a little bit. Quite often I know if I've got a client that's really concerned about going cool, I might just pull back a little bit of the NRG mix. I'll always put a little bit in there though, because if you don't, there's a reason why we have classes on color correction. If you don't put warmth in and you go darker, you will get terrible results. The sort of results that are unacceptable. You might get green, khaki type colors, which are very, very unattractive. So you always need to put warmth in it. If you follow these rules, you won't go wrong. What you might find is you have a little bit too much warmth as an end result. So therefore, that's something to bring up in the consultation. However, when you get really experienced, you can start to pull back a bit of the warmth to try to get the exact desired shade once you get more feel for how much to put in. So that's using the DDs. Really simple. Like I said, you analyze the hair initially, find out what level she is. If she's going 2 levels darker, follow the rules that we've just shown there, develop it for 20 minutes, rinse, and then apply your desired color, and then once again develop for 20 minutes. And using the DDs, that will give you a really long-lasting, intense shine and a major change, a big color correction. So that's why I said it's really, really rewarding. If you've got someone that's going from like a level 9 down to a level 6, that's a big change. And if you can do it in one day, it's only 2 steps, and give her a really beautiful, even result that will last a long time, then a lot of the time that's a client for life, because they know that you know how to do the really intricate, difficult hairdressing things.
And we can pop that up online after the class. We'll put those formulas up.
Oh, cool. Okay, thanks, Andy. Excellent. So that's the DDs. If you're using the liquid demis, then we've got formulas for those. So I'll get Dunk, if you can pop the formulas, thank you, for going darker with the liquid demis. Now, with this idea, this is changing a little bit because you need to formulate depending on the desired level that you're after. So slightly different. And when would you use the DDs and when would you use the liquid demis? There's no set rule. As a general rule though, the DDs are stronger. So if I'm going for a really big change, I'm going 4 levels difference, I probably would use my DDs then. That said, the liquid demis in this system where you're doing double applications, they last a really long time as well. So I'm not afraid to do color corrections with either. A lot of the time, it actually just depends on the tone that you're after. Because if you're aware and you're familiar with Lumishine, the liquid demis are a much larger portfolio, and the DDs are a more concise portfolio. So you've got the formulas up on the screen. I'll just have a little look as well. So if we work on the first one at the top, if we've got a desired shade, so we've got a client that, it doesn't matter how light she is, as long as she's 2 levels lighter than a level 5. So she wants to be a level 5. Step 1 is to pre-pigment or fill the hair. And we would use 6NC and 5-vol for 20 minutes. Simple. Rinse that. Dry the hair and then apply your desired result, because we knew the desired result was a natural level 5. So then I would apply the 5N and 5-vol for 20 minutes and away it goes. So it's actually really, really simple. For example, if you're using, we've got someone that's really, really blonde and she's going down to a level 8, still 2 levels. And this is probably the perfect time that I would use the liquid demis if I'm only doing 2 levels on a really light level. If I needed to go down 2 levels to a level 8, we would then fill with 1 part 7NC and 2 parts clear. Now the reason for that is that we don't make like a 9NC, but you can make that with 1 part 7NC and 2 parts clear. That will give you the 9NC, which really we're after, and then process for 20 minutes. We're trying to get a nice natural level 8, so finish that process with 8N, 5-vol for 20 minutes. So using a liquid demis is probably a little bit simpler. And that runs with a really classic concept of colour correction that I learned a long time ago. Is whenever you're filling, go one shade lighter than the desired result and a shade brighter than the desired result in your initial fill. Remove it and then put your desired result on at the end. And if you follow that rule, your liquid demis work really easily and perfectly as well. Okay, so we've spoken about lifting and toning. I gave you some ideas about using the triangles to do a mop consultation. Remember, we've got our roots, any bands in the hair, regrowth at the top, and we've got our ends. That gives us an idea of analysing the hair and remembering what it is. Sometimes you might not remember what a natural level is, a percentage of white. So writing it here is easy. You do the consultation, you talk to your client, you find out what she wants. And then you put your thinking cap on. You use all the knowledge that you've learnt with your years of experience as a hairdresser, and you come up with a formula. And then when you're going darker, that's when you'll follow some specific rules with using our DD colour creams or our liquid demis. But one overarching rule that we've got, if you use your liquid demis, two-step process: fill first, apply one level lighter and one level brighter than your desired result, rinse, and then apply your desired tone at the end. So that's quite simple. So hopefully today we've given you information to break down colour correction, which can be quite scary, into bite-sized portions that you can get through and know that some simple rules will get you through and give you the ability to give your clients a big change, and you'll give them healthy hair at the end as well. I think it's a question.
Where there is. Can I fill using Lumishine Permanent with 5 volt?
Can you fill with Lumishine Permanent and 5 volt? Absolutely. There is no rule to say that you can't fill using Lumishine Permanent and 5 volt. If you did that, your rules would be closer to your dimensional deposit creams. However, when I'm saying that there's no reason you can't do it, I wouldn't. I don't believe there's a need to use a permanent colour to do the filling process. I would always try to use a non-ammonia based colour when I am filling. So that gives me the option of the liquid demis and the DD creams. You know, there's so many great options and it's so healthy that I would always use that. You may find that you want to use a permanent colour as your next step, the desired result. That's how I would use it. So, for example, if I'm trying to go in with a end result of a 6N, or so 5 natural, because there's some white hair, so I would need to use a permanent colour, or I want to use a permanent colour, I would fill that with my liquid demi 6NC, 20 minutes, and then when I go to put my desired formula on at the end, that's when I'd use my permanent colour. So thanks for the question. It's a good question. Like I said, there's no rule to say that you are not allowed to fill with a permanent, but I just feel like don't do it. There's no need to do it when you've got better options and healthier options. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thank you all for the questions. Thank you for your time today. I hope this has helped somewhat to make you feel more confident with colour correction. We're still rolling, so all of us at Sabre are still doing all of our online education. We look forward to seeing you more, and in our next upcoming adventure is Very Vero with Carly. It is on Wednesday the 9th of June. So everyone, we look forward to seeing you then, and thanks a lot for your time.